Thank you very much to Bernadette and Canadian Water Network for having IBM here. I'll provide a little context and talk about the field of study that I'm involved in the practice group in IBM and how IBM is involved in water, and a little bit about technology and then some opportunities to address the water challenges that we're all facing. So it's my pleasure to be here. A little bit of background and context. I used to attend conferences like this and apologize for not being an environmental engineer or holding a PhD in marine biology or something like that. And I've realized over time that, and of course Canadian Water Network have got this all figured out, that it's really about a rich array of perspectives that make us, able to step up to the challenges presented by something as complex as water. I have a background in sustainable development. Sustainability is really all about the management of complex systems and the big picture and innovation, and some themes that have already been queued up nicely for me here. So there's maybe a bit of a repeat, but I think it underscores the importance of the topics that we're here to discuss this week. IBM has a habit of kind of looking inward on itself and analyzing itself and reinventing itself to try and stay current. And I'm happy to say that about a dozen years ago, we took a hard look at the big picture. And that big picture involves the environment as a super container, and there's a lot of resources used by a company like IBM. We're not small. I think there's well over 400,000 people in the company. And a lot of us work from home, which is great for the environment, but a lot of us travel as well. And more significantly, we use a lot of resources. This journey of ours, or this reinvention, began probably at the turn of the millennium, where we were looking at some of our more resource-intensive operations, such as microchip manufacturing. And we've got a number of facilities around the world that use a tons of an enormous amount of energy and water. And so we started to look inward at our own processes and said, we can do a lot of, probably tighten things up here, we'd probably optimize things. And that went over so well. It was a big aha moment for us. And so we invested heavily in more deep data mining and business intelligence, and have a practice area known as business analytics and optimization. And why that's really important to me, and I think the people in this room, is because you can turn that very powerful tool or lens onto any number of problems facing the world. And we like to get our arms around the really big problems in the world. And that appeals to me personally, and I'm sure the people in this room acknowledge that water is a very big, complex, diverse type of issue. So this is a great set of capabilities. I'm as green as I am tech, so this is a nice merge for me, and delighted to be back again here with these with you folks to talk a little bit about this. Here's a little context then of what we were looking at and what drives the Smarter Planet program. I focus in the Smarter Water group, but again, it's a big program, and water and energy and agriculture and all these things are kind of nicely mixed together. So here's some of the things that got our attention and keep us driving forward with this set of capabilities. Urbanization, incredible amount of strain on infrastructures that were built a long time ago by water engineers who could not have possibly anticipated this kind of hockey stick curve to population growth. Freshwater withdrawals, in step with population explosion. In Canada, the latest figure I saw was 20% of our GDP is derived from natural resources, and IBM as a big operator in Canada and globally, we're aware also that natural resources is very much baked into our operations. And then 41% of the world living in water-stressed regions is really, really a powerful statistic, and shocking. And every time you surf through Google and look for these things, or you read reports or whatnot, it's just kind of galvanizing. And in fact, this figure is going up. If you look in Google just randomly, there's so much information about water. It's so important to all of us. We've all got skin in this game. If you just look through Google, other people prefer other search engines probably. I don't know of any other ones, but there's integrated watershed management. If you just filter on the news in integrated watershed management, you get 4,800 results. If you focus on Canadian web pages and you look for sustainable water resource management, 15,000 hits. And water policy in Canada, within Google Scholar, which is of course just scholarly articles, over 100,000 results. So what I'm trying to say here is that there's an enormous amount of information that we've been able to generate, and that is also the exponential growth curve. And so as an information management company, that's striking and important to us. And of course, even more challenging and interesting is that data is no longer centralized. And it's not that easy to manage by using yesteryear's tools. It's very highly distributed. There's kind of amount of volume to it. And that's important for everybody as well, because the human mind only has a certain capacity to deal with so much. So if I go into Google looking for a very specific thing and I get 16,000 hits, I'm taking Google's word that the one at the top is the best one, but of course it's not necessarily that way. So how do us in the room here come together with the really good facts and figures and ideas and move forward when there's just this sea of information washing over us all the time? The facility that I referred back to around the turn of the millennium is in Burlington, Vermont. There's a similar one in Bromont. They're capturing around 400 million data points per day. So typical water facilities may be capturing 100,000 data points or more. Do we have the skills? And of course we do, but those skills are strained to deal with that amount of information so that we can make sensible, sustainable decisions for operating our water facilities and watersheds. So that's a little background then on the Smarter Planet context. So I'll talk a little bit about complexity because it's a favorite topic of mine. Of course, you can't talk about water without talking about complex systems. So I've been dying to use this quote for some time. When we were infected by the baby Einstein craze in our household, I used to whisper this in my son's ear all the time, just kind of subliminally. I was hoping that it would penetrate. And I think I'm going to get it tattooed on my face if he doesn't start repeating it soon enough. I just love that. I mean, it's very near and dear to my heart. The study of complex systems is no better than looking at how the planet itself has kind of self-engineered itself over billions of years, and it's just a series of experiments, and 90% of those fail, and sometimes there's a mutation, an evolution, an innovation that works. And so as the planet has shrunk effectively and there's more people occupying less free land and there's a more strain on the resources, that is the study of complex systems, social, environmental, and economic systems all kind of coming together. And how do you mitigate those things? How do you take advantage of the emergent benefits that are inherent in complex systems? So IBM is by definition really a system integration company. I think we started out with bread makers or something 102 years ago, but we moved into system integration. And I started in the SI group, in fact, in '98, and I thought that this was about bringing technology systems together. But as time has gone on, I at least, probably slow to pick up on this, but systems integration is not really about the technology systems as much as the organizational systems that go along with that. The people and processes that are behind those systems, that use those systems, that drive those systems. We're the complex ones. Technology will always do whatever you want it to do. And technology will always be in an abundance and kind of ahead of us. So it's up to us to selectively and wisely choose the technologies that are going to work best for us. And so that's an important aspect of complex systems, especially when you're talking about, again, water, which I can't think of a more complex system. Hopefully there isn't a more complex challenge for us. What the graphic I show on the bottom there is kind of causal loop diagram. So we do a lot of this kind of modeling, and I'm going to kind of segue here into some technology. A lot of this, these factors and preferences and personal biases and cultural things and all that can be weighted and quantified. And in fact, you've got to get out in front of all this information somehow. The face-to-face conversations will always be essential, understanding what's the feeling and the sentiment on the ground. But all this information is either going to derail us, or you have to use it to your advantage. So we try and use it to our advantage in our own processes, and then with working with municipalities and companies of all sizes. So we model a lot of factors around water usage and energy usage, and then how does this play into the people who are going to use these things, and what works and what doesn't. And this kind of complex system modeling is really essential, or it's one of the essential tools to helping us tackle the challenges that we're facing around sustainable water management. I'll move on to something that's important to everybody in this room, and this is really kind of thinking about this from a business lens. So we can't ignore the complexity around water. If you turn your back on it, or if you don't have the right policies in place, if you're not investing in it, if you're not taking it seriously, then it becomes a business risk. And a couple of things are going to happen. Municipalities can fail. Municipalities can go bankrupt. Companies are going bankrupt as I speak because they're not paying attention to all the risks, and environmental risks and water risks and natural resource risks are becoming more and more to the forefront of the people who lead our cities and organizations. And so risks, again, can be quantified, but risks along with complex systems are very dynamic and pervasive, and they're changing all the time. And so just some of the risks that I've listed there also represent opportunity. And we're seeing more and more frameworks, and we're working on methodologies for people to identify the bigger picture risks around, okay, what can I do with water? What does this risk represent in terms of a business advantage for us or a competitive advantage for us and our clients? And these risk models around water and calculators and water footprint indexes and these kind of things are extremely important, and I'm glad to see that it's growing in importance and relevance in the minds of most people. Certainly the people in this room understand it, but we've made a lot of investment in tools, methodologies, partnerships for us to better quantify the risks around water. We recently partnered with a group called Water Fund, in fact, that are making it easier for people to invest in infrastructure projects, because we realize that the private sector has to be more involved in investment of our aging infrastructures. And so this is a great indication of kind of the green economy, or the blue economy, or the blue-green algae economy, or something that, hopefully not the blue-green algae economy, but an indication of where we're seeing kind of the evolution of natural resource management and the convergence of that with information systems, and then how to make that easy and digestible for large complex organizations and cities to integrate all of that and be more high performing. I'll move on to technology. So I don't have enough time, obviously, to talk about all the technology that we're involved in. I'll just highlight a couple of examples here. We started optimizing the Burlington and all the microchip facilities around the world. And we saved 30% on water and 40% on energy. And we thought, wow, that's pretty significant. So we're going to replicate that and package that as solutions. And then water is so multidimensional, so multifaceted that the IBM research team, which is about 40,000 scientists, started breaking this into pieces and looking at the top drivers and concerns around the world. So we look at flood models, microclimate forecasting, non-revenue water, combined sewer overflow. And I guess we've got a team in every continent. We've got teams in Amsterdam and Sydney and Israel, and all the top minds in IBM research are kind of focused on very specific technologies around water. So we've done projects where we're looking at non-intrusive algorithmic-based non-revenue water mitigation, because water, unaccounted for water, is a massive problem around the world. We're looking at flood models in the Netherlands, and we're hoping that we can apply that here in central Canada. And extreme weather and climate mitigation and microclimate forecasting, and all of these discrete tools are possible now because of a new breed of technology. And again, 30 years ago, we let the genie out of the bottle with spreadsheets and all that stuff. So we're all just like creating data, and we're kind of swimming in it. But you just can't use yesterday's tools to deal with the volume of data that we have today. So there is this new class of analytical and optimization tools that, I think children in 10 years from now will be using, much like they're playing Angry Birds today. You'll be dragging and dropping data around, and it'll be much easier to get your head around all this, the vast streams of information that are going by. And those are really powerful tools that we use here in Ontario. For example, we're able to bring together vast sets of data sources in 9 universities in the Southern Ontario Water Consortium. And that's an excellent example. And to me, that's more interesting than technology itself. It's about bringing large groups together. People like this room who have very diverse backgrounds, who know a lot about water, but the different perspectives will help us get our arms around these pervasive, complex, multi-dimensional, multi-generational problems like water. So we invested $20 million in that because we felt it was so important. And we've got nodes around the world where we're bringing together research groups in academia and private industry and government, and getting everybody around a common campfire and looking at one version of the truth. Sometimes I like that analogy of, like, you're sitting in the eye doctor's chair and he's flipping the little lens back and forth so you can finally see what's on the bottom line of the chart. And then when everybody can see what's on the bottom line of that chart, you go, oh, okay, it says like, you know, panic, or wait, you have to do something. So that's what we're trying to do with this new type of technology, is to make it easier for everybody to see the real truth that's hidden within these volumes of data. And get people together. And you know, these are local issues, and it does require face-to-face conversation and interactions, like Canadian Water Network have done a good job of setting up here. And so we're just trying to grease the skids to make it easier, to help filter out this, you know, 70% noise, and talk about the really important data that's in there. There's other technologies I'm sure I'm forgetting, but I think that's the important point here, is that when you can boil down the complexity and optimize it, then you create a healthy environment for stimulating innovation. Collaboration and innovation come from when systems collide, as I mentioned earlier. And if you've kind of shackled or handcuffed by all the data that you've got, and you're basing your decisions on erroneous data or something, you're not going to be having the best conversations and making the best, most sustainable decisions. So. I could go on and on about the technology, but it'll be around later if people want to talk about that a little more. I want to end by talking about the opportunities that represents. I mean, we're all connected to everybody right now, and pretty soon we'll be connected to everything. All of the many nodes and data points that are out there are kind of converging together, and those are revealing insights for us. Information, data by itself, as I mentioned previously, is not that much value. In fact, it can be kind of counterproductive. Information and then actionable insights can change behavior, and that's what I think the spirit of this conference is about. And as we'll hear more, I'm sure in the days to come here, and as Bernadette is nicely queued up for us, this is about changing how we look at things. And you know, we're facing a lot of challenges, but I really like the spin that we're putting on it this week. It's not just about the problems that we're facing, but it's all the opportunity within there. We've got everything lined up for us here in Canada. We've got an abundance of water, we've got an abundance of talent and skills, and people from around the world who are interested in coming here and helping us be global leaders. And so there's new business models around this. There's exportable intellectual property. You know, we've heard already about healthy communities and policy in the north, and you know, we've got the makings to have a gold standard blue economy here, and I think IBM is just one of the proud, you know, supporters of the initiative to look at water differently and keep reinventing ourselves and use every tool that's at our disposal, so that we can come up with the solutions, the evolving solutions that will support the generations to come. And ultimately, it goes back to that, you know, that super container, the environment that the Smarter Planet program is really all about, is how can you get the most out of it by doing the least, you know, intrusion, or extracting the least amount, getting the most value out of that. And that's what I call a high-performance ecosystem. And that's what a lot of people in this room are very deeply involved in, and of course we're all supportive of, and we all want that. And so hopefully the information side of that is evolving in step with the urgency of the need around this. I'm just going to finish with a little graphic there that means a lot to me, and I think it's really great. We've talked about the abundance of water in Canada. I grew up here all my life. I grew up in Newfoundland, right by the ocean, and so I never thought we'd see a shortage of it, or that I'd be talking about, you know, a shortage of safe water or something. But there is a certain imperative, I think, in Canada we have to be aware of, that other places around the world have much more stress than us. And necessity was always the motherhood of invention, I think the expression goes. So in Africa and developing countries like this, they have these play pumps where there's some kind of groundwater source. They've got a pump that goes around and around, so the children use this as a merry-go-round, so they're having fun, but they're extracting the very meager amounts of water that they have here. And that's a great indication of innovation in water-stressed regions. And that's probably you know, it's good and bad. We've got a lot of water here, but because we've got a lot of water, we don't treat it the same as these other places around the world. So we're using our global reach and the ability to boil down information and take methodologies and transport them around. And very happy to be applying that technology and collaboration techniques here in Canada and in Ontario. And again, I'm very delighted to be here to represent IBM, and I thank Bernadette and Canadian Water Network for having us here this year.